フライヘルとモーレイネペンテスを融合する。魅惑の香りで虫を誘う二輪の美しき花よ。今一つとなりて、その花弁の奥の地獄から新たな脅威を生み出せ。融合召喚。現れろ。飢えた牙持つ毒竜。レベル8。スターブベノムフュージョンドラゴン。
Hey YouTube, Philly J with Third Dimension Gaming coming at you with my updated Predaplant Branded deck profile post September ban list. So obviously Branded Fusion went to 1. But what if I told you we only needed 1? We only ever really needed 1. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the best monster in our deck, 3 copies of Predaplant Orpheus Scorpio. This is the hands down the best starter because on normal or special summon, you can discard a monster to special any Predaplant from your deck, and the best one to summon is your copy of Darling Tonya Cobra. When it's summoned by the effect of a Predaplant monster, you can add any fusion or polymerization spell from your deck to your hand. That means your branded fusion, instant fusion, super poly, regular poly, whatever you need to search out, get it in your hand, get your combos rolling as you move forward. The simplest starter in your deck and the best way to start your combos. We're also going to use 2 copies of Predaplant Biplisp. This one, when sent to graveyard, can add any Predap card from your deck to your hand. The way it's written, it says any Predaplant monster or any Predap spell trap. That literally means any Predaplant card in your deck, add it to your hand off of this card being sent to the graveyard. And it's a great combo to use with your Scorpio because you can discard it and then you can have your Cobra Chainlink 1, Biplisp Chainlink 2 to help you chain block when if your opponent has an interruption. And then if your opponent has a monster with a predator counter, you can special this from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. We're going to play 2 copies of Predaplant Clammy-Dose-Undo, or Clammy-Dose-Undo, however you choose to pronounce it. It is a polymerization on legs, so you can use its effect to fuse from your field or hand. But if your opponent has a monster with a predator counter, you can use your opponent's monsters as part of the fusion material, and it treats them as if they were a dark monster if they have the predator counter. So it's sometimes poly, sometimes super poly, depending on what your current board state and your opponent's board state looks like. Really, really awesome way to start your combos as well. 3 copies of Predaplant Bufollicula. This scale is so stupidly good, and it pairs so well with your Predaplant Triantis as well. So, Bufollicula, when it's in the pendulum scale, is a polymerization you can fuse from your hand or field, but if Triantis is in your other pendulum scale, you can fuse your scales as if they were monsters. And then they both gain effects when they're sent to the extra deck as fusion material. Bufollicula will add any Predaplant back to your hand except for itself, and Triantis will give your opponent's monster a predator counter. So you can scale both. You can fuse into your Starving Venom, your Greedy Venom, one of your generic fusions, and then you can put a predator counter on your opponent's monster, and you can normal summon out your Clammy-Dose-Undo and Super Poly with your opponent's monster. Simple combos that really help the deck combo off and use your opponent's cards against them. Now, for the best spell in your deck, we're still playing 3 copies of Predapractice. This is the best 2-card starter in your deck is Predapractice with Orpheus Scorpio. You simply use the effect to special a Predaplant from your deck, from your hand to the field, and then you add a Predaplant monster from your deck to your hand. So what a really cool combo to do is use the effect to special out Orpheus Scorpio, and then because this has to resolve before this effect activates, you can add the Biplisp to your hand. On a new Chain Scorpio, discard Biplisp to special from your deck, special out Cobra, and then Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, search a fusion, add any Predap card from deck to hand. Simple 2-card combos that get you a ton of advantage in the games. And then for the one in Archetype Trap, we are playing the Predaplanting. When activated, you send a Predaplant monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is actually why we play the second copy of Biplis, so we can also gain its extending effect on our opponent's turn. So send a Predaplant from deck to grave, give every single monster on the field a Predator counter, and then if it's level 8 or higher, its level becomes 2. And then if you fusion summon a dark monster while this is in your graveyard, you can banish it to destroy a card on the field. Now, we have cut our branded package down as much as we possibly can because with more and more generic good fusion support coming out, we don't need to run as many branded cards, so we are down to 3 cards in our branded engine. 1 fusion, 1 Albaz, 1 Hex. That's it. This is your entire branded engine in your main deck right now. You simply send these 2 to summon Albion. Albion gets you your Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. 1 card Omni Negate. Super easy to do. Now, new spice. New spicy little goodness that I've added. Light End Sublimation Dragon. This card is absolutely bonkers. What you do is you banish a level 8 dragon from your extra deck to special summon it to the field, and then on field it can fuse itself with another monster to summon something else from your extra deck. And what we are going to summon is our new Light and Darkness Dragon. I think it's Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which is a 1 card, 3 Omni Negates. This card is absolutely fantastic. Now, it's very important to know this needs to be the last thing you do on your turn because the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord is a mandatory negate, and this will also lock you into dragons for the rest of the turn. Now, for just some generic extenders, we're going to play the Patchwork engine. We're going to play 3 Patchwork, 2 Chain, 2 Poly. Again, super simple engine. Patchwork gets you these 2. Chain gets you back to Patchwork. So you got A searches B and C, and then B searches A. Super, super simple. Really easy to use. And then for our generic fusion cards, we've got the 1 instant fusion and the 3 super polymerizations. Now the instant fusion is for the best extender in your extra deck in the Predaplant Ambula Melodies, and Super Poly is to make your opponent's life miserable because you're going to keep comboing off at their expense. And remember, your Darling Tonya Cobra can search either of these depending on what you need and what is in your hand. Sometimes you also just get it to search your branded fusion depending on what you want your hand to look like. And then for interruptions, we're playing 3 Ash, 3 Imperm, 1 Call By. That's it for the main deck. 40 cards, super tight, super compact. The ratios, I don't think I would mess with even a little bit. I think what I've narrowed myself down to is pretty much perfect. The only exception might be a second Fallen of Albaz, just in case you open the Fusion and the Albaz and the Hex, you've got a kind of a bad hand. Now, where the real heat of this deck lies is in the extra deck. So let's talk about our best monster in the extra deck to help with our combos, Predaplant Ambula Melodies. This card is absolutely insane. So it needs 2 Predaplant monsters. It is also a level 5, which makes it an instant fusion target. If this card is fusion summoned, you can add a Predaplant monster or a Predap spell trap from your deck to your hand. Again, it searches your entire deck, and then you can either tribute 1 monster your opponent controls with a Predator counter, or 1 monster you control to summon a Predaplant from your deck. And of course, each effect is only once per turn, but it's such a good, powerful effect because it gets you access to your Scorpio, or your Cobra, or your Chlamydozinu, whatever you need it to get access to, it gets you access to it. It can even get you access to your spells and traps depending on what you need it to do. This card is phenomenal. I absolutely adore it. Now we're going to go from the best extender in your extra deck to probably the one kind of mediocre card in your extra deck that you can cut is the Predaplant Chimera Flesia. Now it's not a bad card, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. Now on field it can banish a monster with a level equal or lower than itself, and it is a level 7. So it can banish a lot of powerful cards in the game, like the Fiendsmith cards are level 6, a lot of the Snake Eyes cards are level 1 or I think 10, so all your level 1s you've got access to. And then, the Yubel stuff is kind of off limits, but we can power through Yubel because we got Super Poly, baby. And then in the standby phase after this card was sent to the graveyard, you can set a polymerization or fusion spell from your deck to your field. So again, it gets you access to Super Poly, gets you access to Infusion, Branded Fusion, whatever you need it to get you access to. It is an extender, but you have to wait a turn to use it. And then for your more negate-heavy cards, we've got the Dragostapelia and the Starving Venom Predapower Fusion Dragon. Dragostapelia needs a fusion monster and a dark monster. So I should clarify one more thing. Chimera Flesia needs a Predaplant and a dark monster to fusion summon. Dragostapelia can add a Predator counter onto any monster on the field as a soft once per turn, and any monster with a Predator counter has its effects negated. So when you combo it with your Predaplanting, you give all your opponent's cards a Predator counter, and then you negate all the monsters with a Predator counter on your opponent's side of the field, so you've actually got your own kind of a skill drain in the deck. And then Starving Venom Predapower Fusion Dragon needs a Dark Fusion monster and a Fusion monster. It is far and away the hardest card to make in your extra deck, but its effect is pretty insane. So it's always treated as a Predaplant card, and once per turn, when a card or effect is activated as a quick effect, you can tribute a monster on either field with a Predator counter, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Now, second effect. If this fusion summon card you control is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card, you can target one dark monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use this effect once per turn. So, you give everything a Predator counter, you negate their whole field, they go, okay, I'm going to activate a spell card. You go, how about I tribute your monster? And I say no. And they go, okay, here's a destruction effect. You go, okay, cool, I'm going to get this destroyed, and then I'm going to summon a dark monster from my graveyard. And now it's back, and now you've got a second Omni Negate. And again, you can tribute your opponent's cards for the Omni Negate, which is absolutely awesome in this deck. Also, giving something a Predator counter and altering its levels can really screw up a lot of decks that involve Xyz or Synchro Summoning, or in our case, we have some cards that need to have monsters whose original levels are 8 or higher to kind of, mess with the fusion mechanic itself. Now, for our more generic fusion cards, or even to an extent some of our Super Poly targets, you've got the Predaplant Trifer Overtum, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon, and Garura, the Wings of Resonant Life. So obviously these are your power hitters, and this is kind of a way to deal with your opponent's annoying cards. So Predaplant Trifer Overtum needs 3 dark monsters on the field, and it gains the attack of all monsters on the field with a Predator counter. So again, you can give your opponents your whole board, Super Poly the whole board away, and then whatever's left, this guy gains the attack of. And this Fusion Summon card, when your opponent would summon a monster from the extra deck, you can tribute this card to negate the summon and destroy it. Then, if your opponent has a monster with a Predator counter, you can summon it back. This is a very sticky deck, and it's going to really annoy your opponent trying to get through all the hurdles they have to do to actually dismantle your board and keep it dismantled. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon needs 2 dark monsters on the field except tokens. That's important to know. If this card is fusion summoned, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls. This card gains its attack, its defense, and its effects for the rest of the turn. Then if this card is destroyed, either by battle or card effect, you can destroy all your opponent's special summon monsters. And the effect to copy an attack, defense, and the effect, it also takes that monster's name. So if they have some kind of specific fusion requirement, or if you do, you can use it against your opponent to your advantage. Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon needs a Predaplant monster and one dark monster whose original level is 8 or higher. So it must first be fusion summoned. This is, I think, the only card in your extra that must be fusion summoned. You can target a face-up monster on the field until the end of this turn, negate its effects, and turn its attack to 0. Then, if this card is destroyed, you can destroy as many monsters on the field as possible, banish a level 8 monster from your graveyard, and then summon it back. Now that effect to just the constant recursion is not once per turn, and the negating a monster's effect and turning its attack to 0 is a soft once per turn. Fantastically underrated card. And then Garura needs 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names. It inflicts double battle damage, and when it's sent to the graveyard, you can draw a card. This is mostly just to keep your opponent from being able to successfully resolve card effects. This is a fantastic card against a lot of cards in the meta, like especially against something like Snake Eyes or Fiendsmith. It's like, cool, you got 2 light fiends, you got 2 fire pyros with different names. Get them out of here. They're not there on the field anymore because I got a bird. Now, for our branded extra deck, we have a very small package. You've got the 1 Albion, the 1 Lubellion, and the 1 Dragoon. Now, something to point out that I would really appreciate you guys knowing is that if you're not like me and you don't like this simple 1-2 card combo, if you want to run this engine, Light End needs to banish Lubellion to gain its effects if you want to summon the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, and then Dark End needs to banish the Albion because you need to fuse a Light and a Dark Dragon to make the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. So what I do is I go Branded Fusion into Albion, Albion into Dragoon, and then I go Light End, banish the Lubellion to summon itself, and then fuse itself with the Albion to make the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. And speaking of the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, we have our new kind of boss monster in the deck. It needs 1 level 8 Light Dragon monster and 1 level 8 Dark Dragon monster, which is why this combo works in either combination, because you just have to banish the opposite attribute to bring the one out on the field. Now, must be fusion summoned. While face up on the field, this card is also dark, so you got that dual attribute. Once per chain, if a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, quick effect, this card loses exactly 1,000 attack and defense, and if it does, negate the activation. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target a dragon in your graveyard and special summon it. Now that second effect you don't really use that often, because what you're going to do is you're going to get out these 2 in a really simple combination, and now you've got 4 Omni Negates in these 2 cards alone. So again, you activate Branded Fusion, you go summon, 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 and you've got 4 negates in 4 summons on top of the entire rest of your combo that you've run through at this point. Very, very cool new combo piece, and I love how it works so easily in this deck. Again, the only time that you get locked is off of your Predator Practice or your Branded Fusion, and both lock you into fusions, but you're playing only fusions anyway, so it's no big deal. And finally, for some generic fusion cards, you've got the 1 Magnum the Reliever and the 1 Guardian Chimera. Now, Magnum, it needs a monster special summon from the extra deck and a monster in your hand. You can target a polymerization spell or a fusion spell in your graveyard, put it to the bottom of your deck, and draw 1 card. Then, if when another card or effect is activated, you can, as a quick effect, banish one polymerization spell or fusion spell from your graveyard to destroy a card on the field. Cool card. You know, it's an extender, it's an interruption, it's awesome. And then Guardian Chimera is really good for crackback and cleanup. It needs either 2 monsters on the field and 1 in hand, or 2 in hand and 1 on the field, and they have to be on your side of the field, and this is the only card in your deck that you cannot use with Super Poly. So if you use 2 cards on the field and 1 in hand for a fusion summon, you can destroy 2 cards on the field and draw 1 card. Or if you use 1 on the field, 2 in hand, you can destroy 1 card on the field and then draw 2 cards. And while polymerization is in your graveyard, this card cannot be targeted by card effects. Like I said, the 1 branded fusion does almost nothing to this deck. It just gave us more room for hand traps. So with that being said, this has been the updated 2024 September ban list Predaplant deck profile. If you like it, let us know. Leave a comment, give us a like, make sure to subscribe. Let us know what kind of decks you want to see in the future. And if you think you have a better build for this deck, let me know, because I'm trying to make this as good as I possibly can. But that being said, we'll see you next time.